Have you talked to your kids lately? I mean, really talk, not the weather, not the grandkids' soccer game. I mean, a real conversation about your relationship, your family, and what happens to everything you've worked for when you're gone. If that question made you a little uncomfortable, you're not alone. I am Ron Siegel, certified liability advisor, helping families build wealth through strategic debt management. And today I want to talk about something that doesn't come up enough on a mortgage and finance show: family estrangement. Because here's the thing. I read an article this week from the Wall Street Journal that stopped me cold, and it has everything to do with the families I work with every day. Here's the number that got me. About 1 in 10 Americans is currently estranged from a parent or child. Not a small number. That's your neighbor. That's your coworker. That it might even be someone in your own family right now. And the experts who study this say it's getting worse, not better. So what does that have to do with mortgages and financial planning? More than you might think. Let me explain. When I sit down with a family, in those days, that means a Zoom call, we talk about more than just the rate on their loan. We talk about their household picture, who owns what happens if something changes, what the plan is for the next 10, 20, or 30 years. And I can't tell you how many times I've been in the middle of that conversation and someone mentions almost in passing that they're not really talking to their son right now, or their daughter moved across the country and things are strained, or there's a sibling situation that nobody wants to touch. And my question is always the same. Does your estate plan know that? Because here's what most people don't think about. When you create a will, a trust, a beneficiary designation, all of that is written at a specific moment in time. It reflects your relationships as they existed on the day you signed. But families change, relationships shift, and if your legal documents haven't kept up with your real life, that's a problem. I had a client, call him Frank. Frank had 2 adult kids. He'd done everything right. He had a trust, had a will, had his house in order. Then things went sideways with his daughter over something political. The article I read talks about how political differences are one of the big drivers of estrangement right now. They stopped talking. 2 years went by, 3 years. Frank kept meaning to update his documents, but never got around to it. Frank passed away unexpectedly. His daughter, who he hadn't spoken to in years, was still named as a co-trustee in his estate plan. What happened next wasn't pretty. Not for his son, not for anyone. That's not a made-up scenario. That happens, and it happens because families assume they'll get around to the hard conversations eventually. The Wall Street Journal piece I read was actually pretty hopeful. It was an interview with a psychologist who has spent his career studying why these rifts happen and how to heal them. And his advice was really practical. It came down to listening more than defending, being willing to acknowledge where you fell short, and understanding that your adult children don't feel the same sense of obligation that your generation felt towards their own parents. That's where sitting with for a minute. They're not going to stay in the relationship just because you're family. They're going to stay because the relationship is good. That's a different standard than most parents grew up with. And here's where I think the financial conversation actually helps. Talking about your estate plan, what you own, what you want to leave behind, what you want to provide for. That's one of the most meaningful conversations a family can have. It forces you to say out loud what you value, who matters to you, what you want your legacy to look like. Done right, that conversation can actually bring families closer. Done wrong or done not at all, it can tear them apart after you're gone. Now, here's something most people don't realize. Your trust or will isn't a set it and forget it document. Estate planning professionals generally recommend reviewing your plan with an attorney at least every 2 years. And that's not just because your family situation changes, it's because the law changes. Statutory changes at the state and federal level, changes to tax law, inheritance rules, trust regulations can affect how your plan actually works, sometimes in ways that catch families completely off guard. A document that was perfectly drafted 5 years ago may not do what you think it does today. The law moved and your plan didn't. I'm not a therapist. I'm not going to help you repair your relationship with your kid, but I do work with an estate planning partner who helps families get these documents right, who makes sure that the people who want to protect are protected, and who can flag when something in your current plan no longer matches your current life or current law. If you haven't reviewed your estate plan in the last couple of years, or if your family situation has changed in any way, a marriage, a divorce, a falling out, a new grandchild, now's the time, not someday, now. Go to rsrlinks.com/estate. That's rsrlinks.com/estate. Yeah, that's like Ron Siegel Radio, RSR Links. We'll connect you with the right people to make sure your plan reflects your life as it actually is today, because the wealth you've built over a lifetime deserves a plan that's as current as your relationships, and your family deserves the clarity that only comes from having the hard conversations while you still can. I am Ron Siegel, your certified liability advisor, helping families build wealth through strategic debt management. That is the Borrow Smart segment, brought to you by GetHomeSelect.com. GetHomeSelect.com